Alrighty, this is the last video of the June Taylor Quilt As You Go Mix and Match 12 Block Quilt Kit. If you've watched the other 3 videos, we now have our 12 blocks completed. There is one step that I haven't shown yet, and that is trimming down our blocks. So I will go ahead and show the last one, following instructions for size. This is what the block looks like after all the sewing. And then here's the back. I've got a couple threads I need to trim. So first I'm going to trim just outside of that placement stitch that we have on all of the blocks. And then I'm going to show you just a tip. I mean, everyone's going to do it differently because everyone has different size rulers. I do not have the size that is called for the final square. And so what I'm going to had to do with all the previous, ooh, I had a pin in there, y'all. What I had to do for the previous blocks, I'll go ahead and show you what I ended up having to do to get that size on my own. So I'm just like an 1/8. I'm using that little glass tick on the ruler to go ahead and trim just outside that placement line. And then, so currently it is at roughly 14.5. We need it at 14.5. So my largest ruler was a 12.5. So what I ended up doing was folding the sky in half, taking my widest ruler, which is an 8.5. I came over here to the 7.25 on that fold, checked it, I'm good. So that is a 14.5 in that direction. I'm going to go ahead and fold it the other way. Double check that. 7.25, 7.25, and it is oversized on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim that up. And now my block is to the size the pattern is asking for. I did that on all 12 blocks. Up next is the Sash and a Dash fun stuff. That it is a June Taylor product. It is made to be bought with these. So it is the sashing that will now connect the Quilt As You Go blocks. I have mine still on the roll because after making the kits for the class, I just left the leftover for me. But when the students bought the kits, it was measured out according to what this says, which is 7.5 yards per quilt. So rolling this out, you can see that it's bias binding. There's even a connecting piece right there in a nice dark navy blue. They've taken one and another one, and they've actually connected it for us. So in their manufacturing facility, they've taken 2, opened it, stitched it together, and now we have that stuff. What I was noticing is that it seems to be thinner. I don't know if I can see it on here. It seems to be thinner on one side. There's just a hair that I can catch. Versus going this way, I can't see that secondary one. And I'm not noticing in the instructions that that is for a reason or not. It is telling me to do my block layout, tuck the first block between the layers of one side of the sash and dash, pin and hold in place. So it is not telling me that that slightly smaller side is for a reason. But if you've ever used this fun stuff before, and it's normal bias binding, you know, in a little rectangle pack that we can buy at the store, usually, to my knowledge, you would put that shorter side on the front. Let's go ahead. You would put the slightly smaller one up. So that way, when you go to top stitch it, you're guaranteed to catch the one on the back. See that slight difference? Can you guys see that? That slight difference right there. So when I go to top stitch him, he's going to catch the back. If I were to put the one that's larger on the front, some fiddly stuff here. Then when I go to sew him on his edge, I might actually miss that guy. So in this case, I just need to be mindful that I have that slightly skinnier one on top. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these as directed. I'm only going to do this one on video so that I can show you my different ideas. It wants us to seriously just pin and sew. But I had some ideas. I can run a small line of school glue right here. That way, when I go to put the block in, and I go ahead and lay him down, I could run another one here. Not where I'm going to sew, not on the edge, just right here on the inside. Get my iron out and go ahead and just kind of, you know, press that down with the glue, get it to dry. I can go ahead and prep these two, these two, these two, and these two all the way like that. Another idea was fabric glue stick, just the push-up kind. Again, I would do one row on the back, press my block, come in here, press that, get that going. And another idea was the double-sided, like, I don't remember what it's called. The double-sided seam tape. One side is currently sticky. I would run it, cut it, pull the paper off, and then put that back. Again, I would do it closer to the edge, in the inner edge. That way I'm not actually going to stitch on it because it is quite sticky. I believe this one is 1/4 of an inch. They also make an 1/8 of an inch. And I think even a 1/2 inch size. So let me figure out my block placement before I mess up. And then I'll come and do one of each in those 3 different methods, and we can see the results, kind of like a little science experiment. Okay. So after I've laid the whole thing out, this is the centerpiece. It needs 2 of these, one on each side. So I figured we can just learn together. We can try things together. You guys can see me flubber and fall. And then go, oh, hey, I don't want to do it that way. Or we can all learn that, you know what, this is really neat. I'll go ahead and give that a try. So this first one, let's go ahead and try the squeezable school glue. I will admit, mine's not name brand. For something like this, I don't know if brand type really matters, to be honest. I know there's multiple brands of this. I want to say one is a by Annie's for her bags, and I want to say one is through Dritz, but I could be wrong. I'll have to look. I know my local quilt shop carries it, and I bought it there, and it was a 2-pack. I actually use it a lot for sealing the edges on like my in the hoop projects. So you'll notice here I'm just running that bead down the stitch line that was already on the block. Fold that over, give it a nice press. The sashing is oversized. That is what the instructions said to do. So this one we'll go ahead and let's try. Guess if I would have opened it, that would have, I took it out of the box. We'll try the stick. And this actually does say temporary adhesive fabric glue stick. It is a June Taylor product. Temporary holds your fabrics in place for quilting and sewing. Goes on purple, dries clear, washes out. So I'm going to go ahead and take a big guess that if this is a product she makes, it's probably intended for her products to be used. And so, hey, who knew? The quilt kit and the sash and a dash are also hers. So, and as you can see, I'm not going, you know, all the way into that deep fold. I'm just kind of resting up against it. And I'm only rubbing that glue, you know, the last ½ inch or so. Again, I really don't want it where my needle is going to hit. Okay, and then let's go. So already, the school glue, the squeezable school glue, see the wetness that it's leaving? I don't have my iron on just yet. See that? I'm not a fan of that. Even though I know school glue will wash out. Ooh, I'm falling apart over here. Hold on. Let me turn the iron on because maybe they need to be dried. I'm not a fan of that dark wet glue look over on the first side. But let's go ahead and hit it with the iron on both of them because this one flipped out and fell out, and that's not good either. So I'm almost, you know, crossing my fingers. This may be the route to go. We'll see here. The beauty of recording. Okay, give me just a sec. Okay. So I went ahead, just, you know, laid the iron 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of just went my way down. I didn't actually iron and move things around. I just pressed it to get that glue to dry. Quite happy with this side. It's not flipping and flopping. That's the glue stick side. This one, I laid it there for the same amount of time, but as you can see, the glue hasn't fully dried. And I'm worried about that residue getting on the base plate of my iron. It is not flopping, right? It's not coming off. I just still very skeptical of that glue getting on my base. And I just, you know, I don't know. That kind of bothers me. So the next one, we'll go ahead and do the glue stick since we know we like that. I don't know if you guys can see that purple. So it does go uncolored. I am going to press that real quick before I start messing with that sticky stuff. I am pressing both sides because I'm not sure if that heat's going to get through all the layers, right? You got the double folded tape. You have the quilt top, the quilt batting, the quilt backing, and another double folded tape. So I am choosing to press both sides. Again, look how nice that is. It's just holding in place lovely. So this next one is that sticky-sided, double-sided sticky. So I would have to open this. I would have to find this. See where that is a flipping and flopping? I'm going to kind of like half put it on there and then half on the piece underneath it. That way it's, you know, it's holding it all down. I mean, why not? Make sure you use scissors that you don't mind getting sticky. And while we're here, I'm also going to do this one. If it opens for me. So again, I'm going to go half on that folded. That way it's connecting two pieces of the sashing together. When I'm going back, I'm making sure that the one with that little bit slightly larger lip is on the underside, because I will be stitching from the top. Separate that paper off of there. See that? Sometimes it's nice and rips off easily. Sometimes it is not. Go ahead and lay that down. Get this one. Okay, taking it to the iron and slightly heat prep setting that. It's just a slight heat setting on that one. I don't have the package. It should tell you the timing, but it is not long. It's just enough to get that webbing melted. So again, I'm liking that one too. So for this experiment and which type of material to use, so the one with the glue feels a little stiffer. Like I could feel where that glue had rubbed and stuck. The one with the tape is a little softer, a little floppier. You can tell it's not connected because the tape was way down here. I mean, right? You can see how it opens, but it's stuck. This one, yeah, I can get my finger under there. So I think in this case, I'm going to keep going with the glue stick. I love this stuff, but I have other uses for it. And so I'm going to go ahead and go with that. We're going to bypass the squeezy glue bottle because that wetness just bugged me. I'm going to continue on, and then I will be back with the sewing part. So I wanted to pop in real quick. When I'm taking the middle block and I'm connecting it to the one on the left and the one on the right, you're going to need to keep your blocks in the same spot on the sashing. So what I found helpful in this process was to use the lines on my mat so I had the center block of the row done on both sides. I brought the left guy over, and to make sure that I was placed straight, I used that line on my mat. I kept the original block there, lined that guy up there, double check the bottom, which is out of screen, but it is lined up, and then proceeded. Instead of risking moving it all the way over to my pressing station, I'm able to bring my pressing station here. I do have it protected twice, so I have the wool mat on top of my Martelli's rotating mat with that has wood on the bottom, so I should be okay heat wise. I am going to go ahead and just press. This is the first one with that wet glue, so I'm really hoping that doing this together is going to kind of finalize that. It was still fairly wet when I went to go add the left side block to it. So I am glad I chose, see that? It wants to open up. I am glad that I chose not to proceed with that method. But I also wanted to show you guys this back side. And I'm just holding it long enough to get that glue stick to dry. And then, like I said, I'm worried about this wet residue on my iron. I have to do a good iron cleaning afterwards. But you can see where that wet school glue is still fairly wet. But I did want to show connecting, you know, two blocks together. And there we are. And now I'm going to proceed to line up the right one, the right side. Come over here, take my glue stick, find a comfortable line that I can see across the top there. Take my block, line the block up with that same line so that I know I'm straight. Get that school glue down, well, glue stick down. Let's rephrase that. And then here you'll see I have my wool mat on top of my Martelli rotating, which luckily has the wood barrier. So hopefully that stops any heat from hitting my cutting mat, which it should. And flip myself over. And because I don't believe in cutting out bloopers, when I did that last flip, that one with the school glue, it came completely out. It just popped right out of there. So even though it's showing, I can see the glue, it didn't even hold it together with that final flip. So we're gonna go ahead and insert the glue stick and go ahead and treat that. So even further reason not to use the wet one in this case. Alrighty, so there is row 1, all sashed and glued and held into place. And then I'm going to put it back down with the rest of the quilt and then proceed with the next 3 rows by adding the left and the right blocks. So I've started the sewing. I'm on a straight stitch, and so I don't get to be too creative with this, but I did want to show a couple different things. Here I left it at a 2.5, and I proceeded to go down, hopped over and went down again, and you can see that I'm getting some pull in the fabric, in the sashing. But earlier when I talked about that backside being slightly larger, you can see where here I am on the edge in that like 1/8 of an inch. When you flip it over, I'm catching it no matter what. That would be key, I would say. The little bit of pull that's happening, I'm not too worried about it because I do wash my quilts. I do like shrinkage. So I'm hoping that would take care of that. What I did though on the next side was I enlarged my stitch to a 3. Gave it just a little bit, you know, more room. And then I went down, hopped over, and went back in the other direction to see if that stopped some of the pull. I don't know. I don't know if it's better or not. I would say just do what you like to do. If you have a zigzag, very easily you could sit here and zigzag yourself. If you had a blanket stitch, you could blanket down, hop over, blanket down, hop over. If you have a wave, this would be a good spot to use that. 1, 2, maybe 3 times, or at least once and then twice. I'm going to just keep going. I'm not going to mind that these stitches are smaller than these stitches because this is a part of learning and teaching. This is my sample to take to my students. I'm going to show them the difference. But I'm going to keep going with the 3. And I'm going to keep going with the coming down, hopping around, and going back in the opposite direction. And then at the very, very end, if I really, really get bothered by the sashing kind of just being naked, I can go in with my long arm and I can free motion some zigzags. I can come in with some candy ribbon. I can come in with just some L's and E's. We can see about that later. Because the blocks aren't going to be quilted anymore. They've already been quilted. So, see you in a few. So I apologize. I totally forgot to record this step. I was in a zone. After all your rows are ready, you're going to go ahead and trim up that overhang of the sashing. And you'll see here by my scraps, it really wasn't much, right? Some of them, the little bits. So all I did was take just any ruler, found that, you know, center mark, and I just lined it up, straightened it out. I did that on all of the 8 points, came here, straightened it out. Most of them did not need anything cut off of the blocks themselves, maybe little fuzzy hairs from the batting, but it wasn't bad. So again, I apologize for skipping that step on the video, but I was in a zone. So up next is the long sashings in between. I did cut it per directions. I'm going to use the same method with that glue stick, but it is a long piece, so I am debating putting my walking foot on. I don't use a walking foot very often, but in long, skinny situations, I do. It helps with the length, it helps with the drag, it helps with the weight, it helps, you know, if stop, go, as we're adjusting. And since this is that final step, I do think it would be nice to have that as just a secondary. It does have us oversize the cut. So I'm just going to go ahead and find the center and then start there with the center of the row. Again, being mindful that the one that's a little bit shorter is facing up. We'll go ahead. Probably work a block at a time. Let's see how this works out. That's the fun part of these videos, is you guys just get to walk through the whole thing with me. And we can just learn together. I'm not sure with the length. I don't know if I should pin at all. I think that the glue theoretically should hold, even with the wobbling and the pushing and the pulling. But for kicks, let's go ahead and get in here and press that first block so it doesn't pull off before we get the other ones done. Again, the instructions do say to pin, 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 pin. And if the glue is just not your thing, then by all means, pin away. Not necessarily clips for this, because it's not the end, right? We have that other piece hanging off. I do apologize if you can hear the kiddo. When I tell him I'm recording, I always close the door, but then it almost seems like he gets louder during that moment. So you're noticing I'm not flipping over and heat pressing the back side just yet. I do want to get all three of these blocks on the front done, and then I'll turn it over to press that whole side at once. Okay. Now, if you do have a long iron set up, I mean, this would just be beautiful laid across a whole ironing board. I do not keep mine up at all times. I don't necessarily have the room for it to be left up at all times. So it's currently not accessible. I usually only bring out the big one if I have yardage that I am starching and pressing prior to a big project. Or if I have a finished top that needs, you know, its final pressing before getting sandwiched. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed. This is now the top row. I'll come in with the second row and insert and just do exactly as I just did here. I wanted to show real quickly, when adding the next row, I line up those previous sashings. I just used a ruler real quick to show that they were in the same position. Here I am again, touching base. So this first line, I glued, stitch, and I ran into a problem where with all the movement and all the rolling and all the folding and trying to get it through my lap and the machine, the glue did its job and then released. And so I was running into issues near the end of doing it that way. So on the second row, what I did differently was I glued the first side, I stitched the first side, and now I'm going to go back and glue the next row to hopefully avoid where it released on me on that previous row. Alrighty, all my long sashings are installed. There was 3 of those cut per directions. So here's that step that I forgot to record earlier. It's where you have that overage. And I just take a ruler. I kind of just like to find, you know, roughly that center so that I have the same amount on both sides to make sure that I'm even straight across and slice. I think one of them, nope, it's not off. I was thinking maybe one of them was a little off. If you run across where any of them are slightly off, you can always grab a longer ruler. Let's see here. I thought I saw one, so I wanted to make sure. Let me flip it over. So yeah, so in a situation like this, see how they're kind of not the same? It sucks, but it happens. So with a longer ruler, I'll go ahead and do the same thing. I'll find that center, which is that block there. Take a couple inches to the right and to the left and try to straighten myself out. You'll see here on the left, I got a lot more of a gap. Let me move my iron. Let's see what I can do here. So you might have to square it off on your own. There it goes. You see the difference? So all I did was slid the ruler on the right. I pushed it towards the left. I'm going to line myself up with this sashing and with this block, because I know this block is the same as the one on the right. And I'm going to use that as my new guide to trim this first one that seems a little wonky. Let's see, try to get up on the table. And it could have been my trimming in the beginning. It could have been movement when I added the sashing. What I did try to do along the way that I pointed out with the pictures earlier was to make sure that that was straight there. Can you guys see that? When those got put together, as straight as possible. So here I'll take that nice straight one that was even with the other one, find that line. It doesn't help that it is hanging off a table, I'm going to tell you that. Straighten myself out. So as I'm straightening this ruler, right, I'm straight down here on the far right out of the camera. And then I'm not very straight there. So if I straighten this line out and straighten that line out, that's a big chunk to cut off. Really, really big chunk. And I'm not happy with that. So, because I'm not seeing it down here on the other end where that could have, you know, got messed up. So if I came all the way over, I'm out of screen, all the way to the left, to that top corner, and I came here to the right to where it straightened itself out, you'll see this small little dip. I'm going to let that be a dip. I'm going to straighten from where this block straightens to this corner, and that I am much happier with. I would rather have that teeny weeny little dip, clean this up, straight into that corner, because with this ruler here that you can't see out of the shot is my very far left is straight along the other side of the quilt. So I just had to, you know, move and figure it out. I can suck up that loss there because the binding. Proceed this way. Cross our fingers that the rest line up nicely. So go here with this nice long ruler. I'm straight here, I'm straight there. I'm straight here. And then we have just a little bit of fuzzies there. So that is not bad at all. You can just go ahead and straighten ourselves out. It's kind of like squaring off a quilt at the end before your binding step, which I am very happy with that, because as you can tell, here I'm straight, here I'm straight, all the way to there, straight across. So I'm just going to do that on the other side.